For as long as I can remember, I have been surrounded by stories. Stories of people who overcame obstacles, chased their dreams, and created lives of success. The stories of heroes. But eventually, I noticed something missing. The stories of women who look like me. The stories of South Asian women who were building businesses, shaping the worlds of art and literature, stepping into positions of leadership, and breaking barriers in spaces where they were often underrepresented. It's not because these stories don't exist, it's because these stories aren't told. So I began asking a question. Can you name a South Asian woman who you see yourself in?
No.
I don't think there's like a specific person that comes to mind.
No.
I mean, like, I can think of one, but I don't know her name, and I don't think she's, like, I think she's, like, a resident.
I want to be an engineer. I think that like mechanical and electrical and computer engineering, like I don't know any women, but there's definitely a lack.
I think that, yeah, there needs to be more representation. I feel like guidance and a mentor that's like looks similar to you, has similar backgrounds, also helps navigate how to be as successful as them.
Some questions seem simple until you're asked to answer them. For many South Asian girls, imagining the future isn't the difficult part. The difficult part is finding someone who's already lived it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the stories of three South Asian women who have forged their own paths across the arts, politics, literature, medicine, and more. Through their journeys, we'll explore the challenges they faced, the identities they carried, and the people who have helped shape them, with the hope that their stories become proof someone else has been searching for.
I think it's so fascinating, even in 2026, because, when I started in the 90s, that even as far as we've come, there is still so much of this, right? There is more visibility and there are more people that look like you and me doing different things, but still there is this kind of cloud or bubble around our community. So anyway, there's lots to talk about.
Let's go back to when you were a kid. How did cultural values and your South Asian identity kind of shape your childhood?
I immigrated to this country when I was 20. An immigrant is who I am.
My parents were immigrants, and I grew up in a small town called Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and my parents were really involved in community.
My parents were very invested in me learning Bengali, not just to speak it, but to read it and write it, to travel often home to Kolkata to see, family members, spend time there, make sure that I was kind of really, getting as much cultural kind of input as possible, learning singing, being involved in cultural groups. There were fewer of us back then, so we had fewer structures to rely on.
I've always been a volunteer, and that comes naturally to us in South Asia, right? We grow up with that seva, which basically means service. And we are taught from when we are young that you have to give back. And as a Sikh woman, a Sikh child rather, growing up, we would go and help at different langars, which is, you're giving food out to the poor, helping with the cooking and all of that.
Being Indian was very much a part of my life. It presented itself in a lot of ways, but I also was very aware of the fact that I felt like I had two different lives, where you had your Indian friends and your social things that you did with them, but I went to a public school that was predominantly white. I felt like I was living a little bit of a double life, and integrating that and being my full self in either one of those was definitely a challenge at that time in my life.
In the world we live in, being a young South Asian girl can be challenging when you rarely see yourselves reflected in the media around you. Fortunately, that landscape is beginning to change, and it's becoming easier to find South Asian characters that more authentically reflect reality. But what did representation look like for these women who have now become role models for a new generation?
When I was young, if somebody had asked me like, oh, do you notice a lack of representation? I might not have been able to articulate it, but rather, I think when you don't see yourself in movies, in stories, in billboards, I think it's incredibly detrimental, that kind of narrative erasure. It's almost like a psychic violence, I often say. If you're young, you don't know, oh, this is because there isn't representation. You just think, well, somebody like me can't be considered a hero.
When I started just enjoying the arts and thought about it, started as a career, and I was looking for examples because, again, it wasn't the traditional path, to your point earlier. When my parents had a lot of questions and weren't thrilled at my choices, I was looking for who could I point them to, and there was no one to point them to, really. Often there's this like cute catch line that people always say, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I've always kind of bristled at it, because if I believed that, I wouldn't have done anything I've done. And I think you can do whatever you want if you see it for yourself.
So, what did entering these industries look like for these women? For some, you carry with you a certain innocence that is hard to let go of.
I was so naive. I really didn't realize the business of the business. I think part of this is cultural. I grew up very much in a family that valued hard work and merit, and if you work hard, there is success, right? Like I lived in a world that valued meritocracy. And I went to school and I did well and I trained and I did all the things I did more than things I was supposed to do. I was always over like, what else can I do? What else can I do? And then I graduated, and then I started kind of finding my way through the industry. And boy, was that a wake-up call. I will say I was not prepared for just the business of it. And that was very hard for me. That was really, really hard for me to wrap my head around for a very long time.
For others, pursuing a certain career path may not be a part of the original plan.
I came here and, of course, got busy with my life, had kids, and got involved with the schools because of the kids, right? So I was a PTA chair, got involved with the Girl Scouts, where I was not looking at doing something in the field of politics. But then I really, after the 2016 election, there was a nonprofit that was founded called Stand Central New Jersey. That was a initiative we started to just educate voters and say, hey, it's important to get out and vote. But that's how actually I got my footstep into the political realm.
Another misconception about embarking on a career path is that when you begin something, you must stick with it forever. Sometimes, the journey to pursuing your dream can be anything but linear.
In fact, it wasn't my first career because, like many of your classmates, I am a first daughter of immigrant parents who didn't have trust fund, didn't have anything to leave me beyond my education, didn't have connections to help me get a job. And so they were like, look, we want you to be economically independent. And so I went to medical school and I became a pediatrician and I became a doctor. I don't regret it because all the things I am now are because I went on this journey, but I certainly did not have the most straightforward journey because I was a clinician, I was a pediatrician. Then I kind of shifted careers into narrative medicine, which I still do. I became a full-time academic and full-time classroom teacher. And it wasn't until many, many years later, till I was in my 40s, that I started publishing, for kids and realized, this was kind of the thing that I wanted to do all along. The message that was communicated to me was that that was a hobby, not that it was a possible full-time position. And I would just say that that's the thing that I would like to break open for younger people, to say, yes, it could be absolutely a beautiful hobby, but it could also be your career.
But what is the reason behind what these women do? What makes the risk-taking worth it?
I always loved performing and I always loved telling stories. The acting piece of it and being able to see how stories, to your point, really can move the needle, open hearts, change minds. I feel like it is the exact blend of everything I care about.
I always say, when I treated patients in my clinic, I was in charge of young people's bodily health, right? Your sore throat, your ear infection, whatever, maybe your emotional health, right? In the classroom, I teach undergraduate and graduate college students. And I teach this field called narrative medicine, which is the intersection of story and healthcare. But in classrooms as a teacher, I'm in charge of people's intellectual health and their emotional health. And I think as a writer, you're tasked with this beautiful job of creating playgrounds for people's imaginative health. I see all my careers as kind of stemming from health. But something you said before, I think really resonated with me, which is you never know where your career is going. You never know if, you're going to end up doing the thing you trained for. And you also never know what possibilities are going to present themselves to you.
Being a South Asian woman in any industry comes with its challenges. Whether those barriers are visible or unspoken, they often shape not only the opportunities available, but the experiences that follow. Yet each obstacle became another part of the journey, challenging these women to redefine what it meant to belong.
My very first few meetings, I remember very clearly being at a meeting with agents and managers and casting directors, specifically with agents and managers who wanted to represent me. We'd have a great meeting, and just like they were asking me what my favorite food was or what my address was, they very nonchalantly were like, okay, great, we'd love to work with you. Which one of your names are you going to change? As if it was just a given. And I was so taken aback at that question, and it kept happening. And I didn't change my name. And then I moved to LA. I remember one time in particular, I talk about this story a lot. I was up for a very big movie. It was my third or fourth callback. I was in the room with directors, producers, all the people who make decisions. And then everyone left. And then the casting director pulled me aside and said, listen, you are their top choice. They really want you for this part, but they're very uncomfortable with someone of your name playing this. Would you be open to changing your name? And I still cannot believe that happened. And number two, I remember calling my agent and being like, that can't really be true. Like, I'm going to get the part, right? I'm not going to get the part. And I didn't get the part. And it happened a few more times. And I just really couldn't believe that was a thing. It unfortunately is constantly being told you're not thin enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have the right name, you don't look the right way, all the things, all the time.
It is tough when you are, kind of the first one. When I first ran, I did have people who would ask me questions. I would be canvassing, and there were few people, and I think they weren't coming from a place of, if you want to call it like a mean place. They basically were like, when did you get here? Like, how long have you been in the country? So I think that tells you that people are like, well, she's brown and doesn't seem like, I have an accent and I'm an immigrant. So it was like, when did she get here? Can she run? Is she a citizen? So you do get that when you are kind of the first person trying to do something different.
There's still colleagues, I'll tell you the truth, in my academic career who were like, well, writing for kids, that's not important, or that's not hard. I think like every time you face something, you have to ask yourself, like, are these people giving me a critique because it's true and just, and therefore I should listen to it, or because of some other reason of their own? And in that case, no matter how painful their challenges are, I think it behooves us to keep doing the thing we know that we're supposed to do, right? Again, you have to keep asking yourself, like my dad taught me this. He said, at the end of your life, theoretically, what are you going to regret? What are you going to feel proud of? Make sure your life is leading you to a place where the regrets are few and the pride is many.
I feel like I am more confident and have language around it now. I think at the time, I say I was so naive. And I think people think of me as a really kind of like stand up for yourself person. It took me a long time to get there. I was always very comfortable standing up for other people, but not myself.
Yet despite these challenges, these three women were able to forge powerful careers for themselves. What makes their stories even more special is that each of them defines success in different ways.
I will say I feel very proud when I look back at my body of work that they're really different. I have not repeated myself, I don't feel like. And when I look at every one of the movies I've done, everything's completely different. And I felt really privileged to tell the story. Many of the parts I played were real people, which I feel very just humbled to have been asked to do. I did 2 movies called I Can't Think Straight and The World Unseen in the early 2000s, and they were both centering female characters falling in love, and gay marriage was not even legal at the time. And we were women of color telling stories about the queer community. And the community is still so grateful for those movies. This is before it was cool, before, we got a lot of hate, but also a lot of love. And so I feel very proud that I never not did something because I was afraid of that. People always ask me, like, why would you do those movies? And I'm like, because it was a great script and a great story.
I think the most I wanted to do was work with our youth. I felt it's important, being the mayor, that I make sure that there is more opportunities for our youth, so they get and not just with the Youth Leadership Council. We also have a youth action board. We also have many volunteer opportunities, because I feel the empowerment for our youth comes by being part of the community, right? And if I'm breaking any barriers, then I want to make sure that I am bringing kids with me who feel that they can do the same.
In terms of the books, I love children. And actually, while I was at NYU, I was taking classes in elementary education. I feel like kids are my joy, and I knew I always wanted to write children's books. So I was kind of in that world, exploring, learning, just trying to fill my brain with all the things. But then when I was pregnant with my first daughter, now, oh my gosh, 12 years ago, she's 11, and I was thinking about the books I wanted to bring home for when she was born, and I thought, oh my God, these are the same books that I had. And I could not believe that we had not moved in all those years, decades. And the stuff I was finding was, if there had a brown character, Indian or South Asian at the center of it, was either holiday, food, some extraordinary event, no slice of life. Let's just be us. Books. Now, I had no idea that my Anjali series would become what it has become. I just wrote one book. I had no book agent. I had no idea what to do with it. I went to my acting manager and said, I wrote this book. Can you help me? She's like, I know nothing about that industry. So it's kind of on my own. And now, thankfully, I have now 5 books, and I'm writing more. And I'm just so happy that I'm able to combine all the things I love.
All 3 of these women embody different versions of success. But what do they hope the future holds for the next generation of South Asian girls?
On that note, I'll tell you about this young girl I met 2 years ago. And she came to me and she said, Amir Singh, I was thinking of running for class president, and then I've been so hesitant. She said, listen to you today, and I'm going to actually put my name in to become class president. I'm like, go for it. Then she wrote back to my clerk, said that, she didn't make that she didn't win, but it was such a great experience. And something she would have never thought of doing, but seeing someone else who's brown at that position, it really inspired her to do it. So I think that's what I'm hoping, that there are kids who will see that and say, well, if Mayor Singh can do it, why can't I do it?
The thing I always say, what I want for us more than anything right now, because yes, we have visibility. I want us to be able to make, and I'm going to curse, I'm sorry, shitty things and still be able to work. And what I mean by that is, I could turn on my television and see the most mediocre TV shows, movies, content, whatever you call it. And all of these people get to keep failing up and keep working, keep working, keep working. And we have to be so extraordinary right now with everything we do to get that job and then to possibly work again. I will feel better when we're allowed to make the not so excellent thing and still be able to keep working.
I think when you come from a marginalized group that hasn't had a chance yet, there's so much pressure on all of us to do the best thing every single time, to never make a mistake, right? It's incredible pressure. And I think that daughters have that pressure in a specific way. First children have that pressure in a specific way. And I hope that we are able to play and explore and be a little bit easier on ourselves.
This is where you come in. Every story you've heard has been built on moments of uncertainty, resilience, and hope. Now, these women leave behind the lessons they wish someone had shared with them when they were just beginning.
I think, being a South Asian, I think the only thing I feel that I want to tell South Asian girls is, be confident in who you are. Doing things to please anybody is never going to be what will make you happy. You have to do what works for you. And if that is being an artist, do it, right? And if that means being a doctor, do that. But do what you feel passionate about. You will have ups and downs. Not everything is going to be rosy. But ultimately, if you do what you believe in, that is the most satisfaction you will ever get.
Get real with yourself. What kind of life do you want? And if you want that artist life, realize that it's all of that. You have to love every part of it, not just the work. Then you got to go all in. then you've got to eat, sleep, breathe. You've got to do it in every way possible. And no one is going to hustle more than yourself.
And really important, I think really, really important to remember is not to equate not doing exactly what your community or your family thinks with betraying your culture. We're not. When I was growing up, I thought I was. I thought if I didn't do everything perfectly, my parents had given up so much, I was going to be betraying my culture. That's not, our culture is so wide and vast and people do so many different things. That's not the case. For young people today, there are many possibilities. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to ask yourself what you really want, and find communities of support.
Every story we've shared today looks different, but they all have one thing in common. They prove that there's no single path to success. If this documentary helps even one girl see herself in a future she never thought was possible, then it's done its job, because maybe the next story worth telling will be yours.